like foam, something that I sit here, so that people can feel comfortable doing that. It'll look ugly, but I mean, it'll still help us with that, just because it really does. When we put these here, they were free, given to us, and we didn't think that they would have a reverb problem, and they do. Yeah. So yeah, I am kind of considering the
Hi.
putting like a little.
So recording another episode, actually two today, with Dr. George Kraft. He's got an amazing story. If you're interested in brain health, dementia, vascular health, anything along those lines, this will be a great episode to watch today. So say hi, George.
Hello.
All right. If you, yes, we do want to tag George in the video. Thought we already did. There we go. All right. If anyone has any questions, we will try to. We'll try to monitor those. It's a little bit tough while we're on air, but if you have questions, pop them in. We will take a break in about 20 minutes, and I'll be able to see what your questions are, and we'll try to answer those. All right. All right, so we do have your headphones. Do you need assistance?
I may, I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've been on. Yeah.
Yeah, let me help you out. All right. How's that? Are they right length?
I think so.
Okay. Hi, Jason. All right.
So hopefully I can hear in these, because I've got a auditory issue in the left ear.
Okay. Yeah. Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah. This will be how it is the whole time.
Okay.
So if you can hear me now, then we're good.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Awesome.
Sounds good.
Okay. Oh, you know what? Remind me, name of your practice so that I say it appropriately.
Kraft Holistic Wellness and Diagnostics.
Mm-hmm.
Now I am in the process of
rebranding and moving.
Well, purchasing. I'm taking over Dr. Shane Neifert's practice in Creve Coeur, which is St. Louis Health and Spine.
So how would you like me to introduce you today?
Just Dr. Kraft at Kraft Holistic Wellness Diagnostics.
Okay, and then we'll talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Holistic Wellness Diagnostics. Okay, got it. Yeah. This is Amanda LaPlante, and you're listening to Get Real to Heal on KWRH LP 92.9 FM. With me today is Dr. George Kraft of Kraft Holistic Wellness and Diagnostics. Welcome.
Thank you.
Excited to have you. You and I met just a few months ago, and we had one of the most engaging and amazing conversations that I've had with another doctor or health professional. You've just got such an incredible story, and I'm so excited to have you here to share what you've come through and made it out on the other side of, right? You've survived something that a lot of people don't.
I 14 years recovered from a brain aneurysm.
Yeah.
Back in 2005.
So let's start there. This health journey that you've had is so amazing. So, and even just the story of when that happened and the situation around that, almost a divine intervention. Would you share that?
Well, I was, I'd been in practice for 10 years, and one morning I heard a little voice in my head that said, make an extra key, put it on your front mat, and tell your brother where it is. And the next Tuesday, I ended up not showing up for work, and my office manager called my brother to check on me, because I called if I was 5 minutes late, and I was an hour and a half late. So he found me unconscious on my bedroom floor. And I spent the next year, or 9 months actually, in the hospital. Yeah. Because of a brain aneurysm.
What was that, what was it like in those moments? How much memory do you have of that actual event?
I remember waking, or actually it was like walking out of a fog in the hospital after being in a drug-induced coma for about 4 or 5 weeks. Yeah. And realizing that my entire left side was paralyzed.
What are your thoughts at that point? How does someone come to terms with that new reality?
I just was glad I was breathing.
Yeah. Gratitude?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you spent the next almost a year working through and kind of coming back to being able to resume life.
Right.
Tell us about that process.
It was a tough process. I had to learn how to walk again, which was extremely tough.
Yeah.
And then I went through some very intensive speech and language therapy to get my memory and brain back on track. Because when I woke up, I couldn't read the clock on the wall. My brain wouldn't recognize this difference between a small and large hand. It took me almost a year to learn, to put a wristwatch on and be able to read it.
Wow. What's that experience like? Looking at the clock and knowing something you should know that, but you don't know that, and how does that compute?
Yeah, I was banging my head going, I should know this, and it just took a long time for my brain to recognize that.
What other areas of cognition were affected for you?
Short-term memory, just walking into a restaurant with a group and knowing how many was in the group, I would have to sit there and just physically count every person and not just be able to glance and look and say, okay, that's 5 people.
And to talk with you now, you're such a wealth of knowledge and so astute and sharp. I can't imagine you ever being in a situation where you have been through that. So the recovery process and what you've been able to do is it's phenomenal and amazing to me.
It took me about 7 years of really diving deep into brain training. I did some work with luminosity, Dr. Michael Merzenek's work out of Posit Brain Science, and did some brain retraining games and really learned to sharpen my best tool, which is my brain.
And it's one of the reasons that I'm so excited to have you here today is because you've done so much research in this area, and you've had so much that you've overcome in this area that you're just such an amazing wealth of knowledge. So, and brain health is a primary focus of your practice now.
Yes, for the past 18 to 14 months, or 14 to 18 months, I've been focusing on Dr. Dale Bredesen's work. He published a book called The End of Alzheimer's, the first program to prevent and reverse cognitive decline, where I'm coaching people through his RECODE program, and RECODE stands for the Recovery of Cognitive Decline, and getting good success.
Tell us more about that.
Well, Dr. Bredesen classifies cognitive decline in 3 different areas. Number 1 is inflammatory. Number 1.2 is kind of a neurotrophic or hormonal decline, which the brain is kind of like a big corporation, and when it feels like it's not supported, both hormonally and nutritionally, plus it's inflamed, it starts to lay off workers like synapses, and it starts to lose certain areas of function.
I've never heard it put that way.
And so when you find the root cause of the inflammation and get rid of that, and that can be, number 1, the inflammatory process, 2, a decline in hormones, and 3, a toxic issue like a hidden infection or heavy metal toxicities. You address those 3 and optimize nutrition and hormonal support, the brain you can actually stimulate the lymphatic system in the brain, which is called the glymphatic system.
Okay.
For the glial cells and the astrocytes, and it will remove those plaques that have built up as a protective response to the inflammation.
Okay, so question then, so I know in certain conditions like MS and some other cognitive conditions, the plaques, the lesions that you're referring to, so you're saying those can be reversed.
Yeah, if you optimize the brain's support system, the brain will get rid of those and try to go back to normal.
Okay.
That's the way God designed us, is to adapt and survive and, recover.
So cool. Sorry, I'm processing that. Okay. Talk a little bit more about, so heavy metals come up a lot in conversation, and I'm not as well educated on their impact on the brain as I'd like to be. Can you share more?
Well, heavy metals like lead, aluminum, and mercury are, and lots of chemicals like glyphosate are just all over our society right now. In the air, the water, the food. It's hard not to run into that. And if you're not eating organic or drinking, good filtered water, then you're going to build up a toxicity that's going to affect not only the brain but the internal organs, your gut. And your gut is your second brain, and most of those will kill the microbiome, which are the 100 trillion cells of bacteria that are in there meant to help us survive this world.
Right. Yeah. We need our little bugs. They're our friends.
Yes, they are.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of them are good, and if we, have a challenging lifestyle where we don't take care of that, then the bad ones start to take over, and the good ones don't survive as much.
Right. So going back to the Bredesen protocol, and so you talked about, number one being inflammation, and then 1.2, and what was the next step?
That's hidden infections. I find that there's a lot of old root canals out there that can hide a bacterial infection, that the microcirculation goes up to the brain.
Right.
And then I do what's called a neural zoomer, which tells me, okay, what kind of viruses and bacteria are lurking inside the brain.
Neural zoomer being a test that you're able to perform.
It's a functional medicine test.
Right. Okay. So you're able to detect that based on antibodies or based on...
Yeah, if there's autoantibodies that are attacking, your body's attacking itself, then that will show up. And we can do a lot of detox work to detox the viruses and bacteria.
I have a lot of people that ask me, they're like, well, the body's attacking itself, and it's hard for them to actually wrap their head around how that could be. How do you explain how that happens?
It's the immune system gone haywire. It's overwhelmed with too many foreign substances, like the 80,000 to 100,000 chemicals that are released into our environment every year, that the immune system just needs to have a reset and be taught, okay, this isn't good, you're attacking yourself.
Yeah.
So that then the body doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah. So it can calm and relax and do what it's supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. All right. So, and you talked about toxicity. Well, two things. So I've got so many things that I want to pick your brain on. I've got to kind of, go through and figure out where to start. Let's actually circle back to functional medicine in general.
Mm-hmm.
You're in love with functional medicine.
Yes.
Tell us why.
It goes, it's so simple that you get to the root cause, the foundational cause of something, and you can actually go back upstream and look for the metabolic issue that needs help. And without giving a drug or a pharmaceutical, you can reset the body and help it to heal itself.
So how has functional medicine impacted your health and your life? A couple of examples.
Oh my, in so many ways. When I was in the ICU, they convinced my mom that I needed to have my gallbladder out, which all athletes have a high bilirubin count. And I was still, just before I got sick with the aneurysm, I was still playing competitive hockey and coaching high school hockey. And so my bilirubin count was high because I was on the ice skating 6 or 7 days a week. And when you're exercising that much, you're breaking down muscle proteins, and so your liver has to handle that, and so you're going to have a high bilirubin count. And so they saw that and said, oh, he needs his gallbladder out. And they did much more than just a gallbladder extraction. Because when I woke up out of my coma, they were taking staples out of my stomach. And they must have done an exploratory something or other while they were in there. And a scar right there, right down the midline, affects one of the most prominent Chinese meridians for energy for your digestive system. It took me 6 or 7 years to recover my digestive health from that.
All right, so I want to let's say more about that. This recently came up in conversation with another doctor that I'm friends with. We were talking about scars, and she said that she has to go in and treat for scars because of the energy disruption.
Yep.
And I was like, what?
Yeah, scars block energy.
Okay, so how can we undo that, or how can we work around that? What have you done?
I have what's called a class 4 deep tissue laser that I use for accelerated healing, which I just used on my uncle down in Sarasota to relieve back pain that put him in a nursing home. And that type of laser will heal the area around a scar enough to let the energy in the body pass through that area and not be interrupted by the scar.
Okay, and I'm gonna go another direction with this too. So you also talked about dental infections, hidden infections, and I've been looking into recently kind of that tooth body connection, right, and the energy flowing through there, and how if we've got an infection or if we've got metal in our teeth or something like that, we can again disrupt the energy flow throughout the body. Thoughts on that?
I just before I left for my conference in Florida, I had to have a wisdom tooth extracted. And the dentist I go to is Dr. Michael Ramey up on Balance. And
yeah,
he's
very familiar.
His practice, he puts right on the front the tooth body connection. And I used that laser to heal the wisdom tooth socket before I left.
Okay.
And so within 3 or 4 days, he was able to take the stitches out, and it was almost completely closed.
That's fascinating. So really, that quickly?
That quickly, yeah.
Okay, so I had my wisdom teeth out years ago, and I was much younger than I am now, and I healed much faster typically, and I got dry socket, and I had all kinds of issues.
Nasty stuff.
Yeah, all kinds of issues, and I wonder, okay, now you've got me curious. I might need to look into some old scars myself. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about, so you talked about toxins a little bit, and I know you and I, before the show, we were talking a little bit about your recent hotel stay, in which you had an unpleasant surprise.
Yes. I had to make an emergency hotel stop in Dalton, Georgia, about midnight Wednesday last week on my way to Florida, and didn't realize until the morning after I had turned on the heater that the room was full of mold and fungus. And I had already had a challenge for the past several weeks with a inflammatory issue with my right hand or left hand and left leg because of my aneurysm. And that just caused my left hand to turn into a water balloon. And it's still not back to normal, but it's a whole lot better. I've been using a therapy called BEAMER. It stands for Bioelectric Energetic Mat Rejuvenation. It creates a magnetic field about 3 or 4 inches high off the mat, which changes the surface tension on the microcirculatory beds inside your body so that the red blood cells don't clump up and get stuck, and they don't look like a mule race. It looks like the Indy 500 going by.
That's better. That's what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about it. There's a couple things to follow up on there, but let's talk about mycotoxins and some of the mycotoxins being fungus, mold, but some of the issues that those can cause for people that they may not be aware of.
oh, they can wreak havoc with your immune system. The immune system, is throwing off the sirens that there's a huge foreign invader floating around in the system because of the mold and the fungus throwing off mycotoxins that interrupt brain function, interrupt gut function, organ function, you name it.
Okay, and so how, in your practice, how would you, what are the red flags that make you suspect mycotoxins as the issue, and then how do you test for those?
I test for those using a functional medicine test called a neural zoomer, which will identify mycotoxins, hidden bacterial infections, viral infections, and things like that.
So that neural zoomer will catch all of that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to look into that. That's really interesting. Huh. All right, the beamer technology. So you just got back from a conference about, you said microcirculation.
Right.
Okay, say more words.
Tell
more about that.
Microcirculation are the small capillary beds all over your body, but mostly surrounding your internal organs. Like your heart and your kidneys and your lungs have huge microcirculatory beds of capillaries that are about half the diameter of the size of your hair. And the red blood cells have to be able to go through there very efficiently to deliver nutrients and oxygen and things like that, so that they stay healthy.
Right.
And this mat that puts out a electromagnetic field reduces the surface tension on the inside of these circulatory beds and allows the red blood cells to go unclumped up and unimpeded into those areas, and so they work very well.
Okay, so in a condition like, for instance, I have Raynaud's, which so capillary dysfunction essentially throughout various parts of my body. How I guess this would help with that condition, and
I would think so, because it's a circulatory issue, and that's what this has been designed to do, is to help with circulatory issues and help deliver blood and red blood cells to where they need to go.
yeah. So what if someone were to come with a condition like this to you? That would be one of the first things you'd recommend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that
in addition to
in addition to checking out to see if there's other lifestyle issues and dietary issues, and the first thing I would check is the gut, because all diseases begin in the gut.
Okay, so all diseases begin in the gut, and when somebody comes to you and they want to get started, how do you check the gut? Because I know there's a few different tests in different ways out there, and different doctors gravitate toward different philosophies.
I use what's called a gut zoomer by the same company that does the neural zoomer.
Okay.
And that tells me whether there's a leaky gut or whether there's a microbiome imbalance that could be causing some serious issues.
When you talk about leaky gut, how do you explain that? Because I've had to do that many times in what I do, and I'm always interested in how people are able to explain that and articulate it well.
Well, my explanation is, the cell wall between the gut and the bloodstream is one cell thick, and those cells are held together by what are called tight junctions, and those tight junctions are affected by different inflammatory foods and things like glyphosate from Roundup that can change the permeability or the openness of those tight junctions. So when those are affected negatively, then it's like an open chain link fence, and undigested food particles can pass right through straight into the bloodstream, and the immune system just goes off like a fire alarm and says, I don't know if you remember Lost in Space, danger, Will Robinson.
Danger, Will Robinson. Yes, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do remember that show.
You're not old enough to remember.
Well,
that
actually,
show.
they just remade it. There's a new one on Netflix.
They did.
I am So that was before my time, but my dad was a huge fan, so
Okay.
I am very familiar. So, very familiar. Well, I'm so glad that you're here with us today. We've got another episode that we're going to record, so stick around, right? And we're going to take a break and then record another episode here. But I do want to make sure that anyone listening this week to this episode has a chance to get your contact information and how they can get in touch with you, Dr. Kraft. So would you please share?
My new office address is 12401 Olive Boulevard in the Tempo Office Medical Building. And right now I'm using my cell phone as my phone contact, which is 314-397-1682. And my office phone number I don't remember right offhand yet because I haven't memorized it yet.
Yep, there you
So
go.
new.
Yeah. So and you're switching to that new location right now.
Right now,
In
yeah.
the process of the office move. It's really exciting.
I don't even have my adjusting table over there yet.
Yeah. So all right. Well, and thankfully this will air in a couple of weeks, so it'll be perfect timing.
Yeah.
So well, good. I'm so glad that you joined us today. Thank you so much, Dr. George Kraft with Kraft Holistic Wellness and Diagnostics. This is Amanda LaPlante. You've been listening to Get Real to Heal on KWRH LP 92.9 FM. For more information from me or to contact me, find me online at amandalaplante.com or on facebook.com/getrealtoheal. You can reach out to me for a free 30-minute consultation anytime at 314-583-6749 and make it a great day. Cool.
Cool.
Some good info. Yeah.
I tongue-tied on a couple of those words there.
That's all right. You did great. Yeah. It's interesting. Have you done radio before?
Never.
Oh, you did exceptionally well then. Yeah, it was good. All right. Well, we will check and see if we had any questions here, and we will upload. Oh, good. All right. I'm gonna record another episode, but in the meantime, we're gonna go ahead and upload this one. So I'll be back with Dr. George Kraft.